Hey, welcome to my book recap for April. It's going to be 2 parts because it's getting long. So I think my new goal is going to be 2 videos a month, maybe more. Just when my recaps start getting too long, I'll upload something. I'm not a great editor and I'm just practicing at this, so I'm hoping that my reviews become more accessible and concise over time. But welcome and have fun listening to me rant about all of my books. Alright, so I read the book Hollywood Park by Miguel Jolet, and this was a really excellent memoir. I don't think I've read a book with such an interesting, convincing tone in such a long time. The way that it's told is very present tense, so I did this, I go here, this is what happens. And it's told throughout his life, and it's so present. Like, I felt in the moment, I felt like I was a 6-year-old with him. I felt like I was a 13-year-old. I was shocked at the revelations that he came to as an adult because I felt like I was living it with him. It was really well written. And this is one of those where I was, at the same time, I should research the books I read better before I read them, but also I was kind of glad I didn't. I did not realize until the end that this was written by the lead singer of Airborne Toxic Event, and that was just a surprise. I think his life merited a memoir regardless. I've read plenty of books that follow famous people or people in bands, but this was an excellent book, and the band was almost just a footnote. It was, his parents were a part of the cult Synanon, and he was taken away and raised as a, what he says, child of the universe for his first years of life, and then his mother pulls him and his brother out of the cult. They escape because people are trying to track them down. And then it follows his life and his problems with addiction, and it was just heart-wrenching and detailed, and I just felt so involved in it. It was excellent. I give it 5 stars. As a content warning, there are a lot of swears in it, but that fit with the tone. I mean, when I'm going through and reading as a 13-year-old boy who desperately wants to rebel and get away from his mother who is being emotionally abusive, that was, kind of, it made a lot of sense for the voice of it. Although if you don't like a ton of swearing, it might be a little off-putting. That would be my only downside on that. I really loved all the aspects of the story, just how it addresses addiction and making human connections and working through your issues, and how it's never just a one and done thing, that it's a constant process even when you understand your issues. It's a process. And I also liked this as an illustration of emotional abuse. Not that I like emotional abuse. It was a good illustration of emotional abuse, because I think a lot of times we think, okay, yes, abuse is bad, physical abuse, we know what that looks like, we know what sexual abuse looks like, but looking at emotional abuse, sometimes we see extreme cases where we think, oh yeah, that's emotional abuse because she was saying, you're ugly and I hate you. But no, this was a very more nuanced look at it, and I felt like I really understood what that was as I read it. I realized what he went through and how difficult it would be to process as a child getting into that situation and not understanding why your parent is so focused on themselves and not properly taking care of your needs, and how that could lead to problems. So I thought all around it was an excellent read. Oh, also, I started reading the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and can I just say, ugh, I hated that one. 1 star, just, I mean, filled with a bunch of catchphrases that she repeated in a million different ways. How many ways can you say, oh, be true to yourself, be in your own wild self, and do what you want? I hated it. So maybe avoid that one. I mean, everybody on Goodreads has rated it so highly, so maybe I'm just in the minority. But I just found her to be repetitive, annoying, um, unhelpful, and then also a lot of it seemed like she was so focused on herself that all of her life views were just justifications for what she wanted to do. And if you don't live like she does, you're not as awesome as she is. So, I'm kind of annoyed with that one. Avoid it. Okay, so I'm going to run through a few more of the books that I read this month. I read the book All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a really great memoir, collection of essays. He had some really great ideas about race and queer identity, and I really felt like I understood his perspective. There was some talk about, as a warning, there's some talk about sexual abuse and just life. It was a really good look into things. I did enjoy that one. I read the book Mexican Gothic, next by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and it follows our main character Noemi as she goes to check on her cousin who married a man and moved off to a rural house and wrote her a letter, and we're all worried about her cousin's well-being. So she goes to this creepy old house, and the creepy old house has a secret, and what could be happening, and why is she having all these scary dreams? I was so on board at first. I'm thinking Rebecca, I'm thinking Jane Eyre, who's locked in that attic of that house. Then there was like the whole reveal of what was locked in the attic, and I thought, really? That was it? Okay. And then it just started to kind of get rushed, and everything got thrown at you, and yeah, no. I gave it 2 stars. I mean, good setup, and then... Alright. The next one I've got is Pull of the Stars, and this was a really interesting one. It follows a nurse in 1918 in Ireland in a maternity influenza ward, and she's taking care of patients, and you can see all the treatments and the context of the war, and it was very interesting, well-researched, historical. But then the end, did the author run out of time? I think she did. I think she was trying to get it out so that we could all read it for 2020 pandemic time, and what it ended up was that she just kind of threw stuff at you at the end. There were a couple plot points that were just thrown in, not given enough time to properly develop, and so felt kind of cheap and just shoved in. So, hated the ending, really liked it up to that point, 3 stars. The next one I read was called The Night Watchman, and I gave this 3 stars. It's probably like 3.5, almost 4 stars. I don't know, somewhere in there. It follows a tale of a tribe in North Dakota with their that was trying to that was going to DC to try to make sure that they could keep their land, because the government was trying to take away their land and go back on the centuries old treaties. And it was very interesting. It actually followed some of the real court transcripts. I was very on board for a lot of it. It was also very interesting because the person who introduced the bill to take away native lands was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like me, and it was very interesting from a religious perspective to look at it and say, okay, there are many people who have used religion to justify doing things that are racist and that are unfair, and how do I interpret the doctrines, and how do I, put those together? How do I put that together in my life? Making sure that I'm using religion to improve and help people, and not to judge and take away rights from other people. So I thought that was very good. The story itself was a little rambly. There were too many branches. I couldn't give it 5 stars because I just felt like there was a lot going on and I got a little bored. Well, and that is the end of part 1 of my recap of my books from April. I will be back next week with part 2 of my book summaries, and thanks for watching.